student scholars in association with Goa Headmasters Association.
Welcome everybody. My name is Suraj Aldankar and today I am going to focus on the second geography lesson for the students of standard 10th. As we know that India is a rich country as far as natural vegetation and wildlife is concerned. India has more than 47,000 species of plants and nearly more than 81,000 species of animals. So you can see some of the species of animals here on the screen, like lion, elephant, and then we have other species like microorganisms. Then we have a number of aquatic animals as well. So India is rich as far as flora and fauna is concerned. So here again, I would like to focus. So we are going to discuss about the forest and wildlife in this lesson. But before I go to the actual lesson, let us just recap what you have learned last year. In 9th standard, you also had almost the same lesson, that is natural vegetation and wildlife. And you have seen different uses of forest. Forests are of immense use to us. And if we can divide the uses of forest, we can divide them into two parts, maybe from ecological point of view as well as for personal use. From ecological point of view, forest helps us in soil formation. Okay, humus, provides humus. It provides shelter to wild animals. Okay, it helps in bringing rainfall. Okay, it modifies the local climate. And so many other uses, ecological uses of forests are there. If you look at general uses, like in our personal life, many people depend upon forest for their livelihood. And forest also supplies raw material to various industries. Okay, we also visit forested areas for during our free time to enjoy the natural beauty. So there are various uses of forest in our day-to-day life. So let us commence the second geography lesson for the students of standard 10, that is forest and wildlife resources. As we know that India is rich in forest and wildlife resources, and we have a number of plants and animals in our environment. We share our planets with the millions of living beings. And we have seen in the previous slides that there are a number of plants and animals which are there in our environment. And in this complex web of ecological system, we are a small part and we are dependent on other living beings for our survival. So we all are part of something called biodiversity. Now what is biodiversity? Biodiversity means existence of millions of living beings side by side in the environment. If I can put it in other words, biodiversity is immensely rich in wildlife and cultivated species, diverse in form and function, but closely integrated in a system through multiple network of interdependencies. So there is immense biodiversity in this world and in India. You can see here in this picture that we have different living organisms and we are all dependent on each other for our survival. So why is biodiversity so important to us? Biodiversity is important to us because human beings depend upon biodiversity for its survival. We all are dependent on biodiversity for our survival. We cannot survive without the biodiversity. Now, why do I say this? Because the plants, the animals, the microorganisms, they recreate the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the soil that produces our food without which we cannot survive. So, human beings are totally dependent on biodiversity for their survival, because plants, animals and microorganisms recreate the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink and the soil that produces most of our food. Now, forests also play an important role in the ecosystem, as we have studied that in ecosystem living and non-living things are interdependent on each other. Forest plays a very important role in the ecosystem because as these are the primary producers on which all other living beings depend. Okay, you can have a look at this picture here. Forests are the primary producers, and as I have mentioned, the forests are of various uses to us. They are useful to us in various ways. So, they are the primary producers on which all other living beings depend. So, I will just repeat why biodiversity is important. Biodiversity is important to human beings because we depend on biodiversity for our survival. Okay. The plants, animals and microorganisms recreates the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink and the soil that produces our food without which we cannot survive. And forests play an important role in the ecosystem as they are the primary producers on which all other living beings depend. Now, in India, we have lots of variety of plants and animals. Therefore, India is one of the richest country in biological diversity. If you can look at the screen, it says that it has 8%, that is 1.6 million of the total number of species in the world, some yet to be discovered. But lately our flora and fauna has come under great stress, okay, and many mammals as well as flora and if I could say flora and fauna have come under great stress, and some are even categorized as critical. Now, when I say critical here, it means that they are on the verge of extinction. They may become extinct and they may disappear from a particular area or a particular region or a particular state or a particular country or say from the world. So, when we refer to critical here, we are talking about that they are on the verge of extinction, and you can see all these animals are critical and some of them even have become extinct, okay, in some parts of the world. Okay. We have the mountain quail, we have the pink-headed duck, we have the forest spotted owlet, we have the plants, we have Hobbardia heptaneuron, we have Maduka insignis, and here we have the cheetah, wrongly spelled here as leopard, the cheetah. So, all these animals are classified as critical. They are all critical. You can see clearly now a picture of cheetah here and the pink-headed duck. So, again there are other birds also like mountain quail, forest spotted owlet. So, all these species of plants and animals are critical, and some of them have become extinct in some parts of the world. So, accordingly, the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources has classified the species of plants and animals into different categories. Okay, I repeat, IUCN has classified the species of plants and animals into different categories. Okay, I'll just read briefly the first categories and then I'll go in the detailed explanation of these categories. First is the normal species, then we have the endangered species, we have the vulnerable species, we have the rare species, we have the endemic species, and we have the extinct species. Okay. So now most of you must have understood by looking at the name only. You can just understand what will be their position here. Normal species are those species whose population level are considered to be normal for their survival. That means their population level is normal. Okay, they don't have any problems as far as their population is concerned. And which are the species? Some of the examples of such species are cattle, rodent, sal, and pine. So these are normal species. Then we have the second category, that is endangered species. The name itself suggests that these species are in danger of extinction. They are in danger of extinction, and survival of such species is difficult if the negative factors that have led to the decline, okay, in their population continues to operate. So endangered species are those species which are in danger of extinction. Anytime they may become extinct and they may disappear from a particular area, region, as I have said, or state, or a country, or the world. So survival of such species is difficult if the negative factors, which we are going to discuss later on in this topic, continue to operate, and their population will continue to decline, and they will someday become extinct. The next category, I'll just explain which animals are classified in this. We have the blackbird, we have crocodile, we have the wild Indian ass, we have the Indian rhino, we have the lion-tailed macaque, and we have Sangai. All these animals, I'll just repeat, okay? I'll just put it on your screen again. All these animals are classified into endangered category. Then we have the vulnerable species. These are the species whose population has declined to a level from which they are likely to move into endangered category. That means that their population was more earlier, but now it has declined, and they are likely to go into endangered category. And we know once they move into endangered category, there is a possibility that they may become extinct. So vulnerable species are those species whose population has declined to a level from where it is likely to move into endangered category in the near future if the negative factors continue to operate against them. Which are the examples here? We have the blue ship, we have the Gangetic dolphin, and we have the Asiatic elephant. All these animals are classified as vulnerable species. Then we have the next species, rare species. The name is self-explanatory. The name itself is self-explanatory. Rare means, you can refer here the word small. Okay. Species with very small population, they have very less population, may move into endangered or vulnerable category if the negative factors affecting them continue to operate. So all those species with small population which may move into endangered category or vulnerable category if the negative factors continue to operate against them, then those species are classified as rare species. Okay, examples here are Himalayan brown bear, we have the wild buffalo, we have the desert fox, we have the hornbill. Okay, so these are all examples of rare species. They are rarely found in certain areas. The population is very, very less. Then we have the endemic species. Okay. Now endemic species are those species which are found in a particular area or a specific area, usually they are isolated by a geographical or a natural barrier. So what are endemic species? Endemic species are those which are found in particular area, usually isolated by natural or a geographical barrier. In this we will have the Andaman teal, Andaman wild pig, the Nicobar pigeon and Mithun, which is found in Arunachal Pradesh. Okay. So these are examples of endemic species which are found in specific or particular area. Then we have the next category of species, that is extinct species. Again the name is self-explanatory, okay. These species are the species which are not found, okay. These are the species which are not found after searches of known or likely areas where they may occur. So even after searching them, okay, in the known areas and likely areas where they are supposed to be found, but they are still not found in those areas, then we say that these species are extinct species. Okay. Like in this we have two examples. We have the Asiatic cheetah and we have the pink-head duck. In this category we have put two species of animals. Okay. We have the cheetah, Asiatic cheetah and the pink-headed or pink-head duck. Now cheetah is considered to be, was considered to be the fastest among the land mammals. Okay, which used to move at a speed of around 112 kilometers per hour. But it was declared as extinct species in the year 1952 in India. So let us see the different categories with the description of, and we'll take the key words in that. We'll see the key words. Okay, let us say normal species. The key words are here. Population is normal. Population is normal. Then in endangered species, key word is they are in danger of extinction. They are in danger of extinction. Then vulnerable species, key words are they may move into endangered category. They may move into endangered category. Then rare species are the species with small population. Okay. They are species with small population. And endemic species are those species which are found only in certain areas or particular areas. Those are called endemic species. Then there is continuation of the definition, but these are the key words. Extinct species which are not found after searching, in the likely areas where they may occur. So these are the 6 different categories of animals which are classified by the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. We may discuss much about the negative factors which are affecting the flora and the fauna of our country. So there are many negative factors in fact, but we have to see it in a different way now, that we are also directly or indirectly using all these resources in our day-to-day life. Like we use wood, we use fodder, we use medicine, okay, we use barks of the trees. All these are coming from forest. So we ourselves are depleting our forest and wildlife resources. But these were some of the major or some of the negative factors which led to the depletion of flora and fauna. I'll first focus on these factors. Now, when I say negative factors, there are many other negative factors, but we'll cover these factors first. Now, the greatest damage on Indian forest was inflicted during the colonial period. We know which is the colonial period, right? when we were ruled by the British. And during this period, there were lots of damage done to the flora and fauna of our country. And the reasons were due to expansion of railways, due to expansion of agriculture, commercial and scientific forestry, and also due to the mining activities which were carried out during that particular period. So, greatest damage was inflicted on Indian forest during the colonial period. You can see here, due to railways, then mining, some of the habitat destruction was taking place for different developmental activities. Then deforestation was taking place during that time. Okay, now, but it is still continuing. So forest areas are still being cleared for agriculture today also. And we have a record of this between 1951 and 1980. According to the Forest Survey of India, over 26,000 square kilometers of forest area was converted into agricultural land all over India. The tribal belts of the northeastern and the central India have also been deforested or degraded by shifting cultivation, which is called jhum cultivation, a type of slash and burn agriculture. So there are various causes for the depletion of flora and fauna in India. Okay, I have a picture of shifting cultivation here for you. You can see here a patch of land is cleared here. Okay, and then that part is burnt, and then agriculture is practiced in that particular area. So we have shifting cultivation. Okay, so there are other negative factors also that can cause depletion of flora and fauna, like habitat destruction, hunting and poaching, overexploitation, environmental pollution, poisoning, forest fire. These are also causes or the negative factors which have led to the depletion of flora and fauna. Okay, so hunting, then poaching of tiger here can be seen here also, poaching activity, then forest fire, then habitat destruction taking place in this particular area. So also the large scale development projects have also contributed significantly to the loss of forest. Since 1951, over 5,000 square kilometers of forest land was cleared for river valley projects, like you can see here dams, okay, is one of the river valley project. So lots of areas have been also cleared for developmental activities, and clearing of forest is still going on with projects like Narmada Sagar project in Madhya Pradesh. Then we can also say agricultural expansion, as we have seen in the past, that agricultural expansion was also one of the reason for destruction of the plants in India. Then the next cause is mining, deforestation due to mining. Mining is also responsible for the destruction of forest. Okay, now here one example I can quote here. Buxa Tiger Reserve is seriously threatened by ongoing dolomite mining in West Bengal. Now what has happened because of dolomite mining in this particular area is that it has disturbed the natural habitat of many species, and it has also blocked the migration route of several animals, including the great Indian elephant. So we have seen some of the other causes which are actually taking place because of the developmental activities, like agricultural expansion is one of the cause, then large scale development projects, deforestation due to mining. So all these factors are actually leading to decline in our biodiversity, natural destruction of natural habitat, hunting and poaching, forest fire, okay, then environmental pollution, overexploitation. All these factors are leading to declining in biodiversity. Plus other factors are also responsible like inequitable consumption, okay, unequal access and difference in sharing of responsibilities. Those factors are also there. So there are a number of factors which are responsible for the depletion of flora and fauna in India. Now what happens because of this? See, when there is depletion of flora and fauna, we also have the biological, it is not only a biological loss, it is also a cultural loss because we lose the cultural diversity in certain regions. Like you can see on your screen now, these are the pictures of the tribal people, and tribal people traditionally have their homes in the forest. And when there is destruction or loss of, there is biological loss due to destruction of forest, then it is a loss of cultural diversity for these people also, because such losses increasingly marginalized and impoverished many indigenous and forest dependent communities, because they are directly dependent on forest for their various components of life which they require, like food, drink, medicine, culture and spirituality, etc. So it is also affecting the people living in the forest areas like tribal. And indirect impact of degradation such as severe drought or deforestation induces floods which hits the poor the hardest. So the biological loss is also strongly correlated with the loss of cultural diversity. Now, such losses have increasingly marginalized and impoverished many indigenous and forest dependent communities, because these communities directly depend upon forest for various components which are required in their life, like food, drink, medicine, culture, spirituality. Now you can see here in this picture of tribal people here, and tribal people traditionally have their homes in the forest. So their life is getting affected. It's a cultural loss for them, a loss of cultural diversity for them. It also impacts, it also has other impacts like drought or deforestation induced floods. So the poverty in some cases may be a direct outcome of environmental degradation. Therefore, forest and wildlife are vital to the quality of life and environment in the subcontinent. But due to this, women are affected more than men, because women bear the major responsibility of collecting all the subsistence needs like food, wood, water. And when there is destruction of forest and wildlife, or when there is depletion of forest and wildlife, the problems or the hardship of the women increases, because sometimes they have to walk for kilometers to bring these resources. And what happens due to this? This may cause serious health problems for women and negligence of home and children because of increased hours of work, which often has serious social implications. So who suffers more due to depletion of flora and fauna? It is the women who are living in this area, because women bear the major responsibility of collection of basic subsistence needs. And as these resources are depleted, the problems or the hardship of the women increases, as they have to walk for a long distance, and because of this causes serious health problem, and they also neglect their homes and children due to increased hour of work. Okay, you can see here in this picture the hardship of women which they face due to depletion, and their children also suffer sometimes because they are totally neglected due to increased hours of work. So therefore, conservation of forest and wildlife is very, very essential. Okay, so we need to conserve our forest and wildlife. Now, why should we do it? Due to rapid decline in wildlife population and forestry. The wildlife population and forestry is declining rapidly So we have to see that we conserve our forest and wildlife. Conservation also preserves the ecological diversity which is there in the ecosystem, and it also supports our life support system, that is air, water and soil. Conservation is also needed to preserve the genetic diversity of plants and animals for better breeding, for better growth of species and breeding. Now fisheries too are heavily dependent on the maintenance of aquatic diversity. So we need to focus on conservation of forest and wildlife, and these are the reasons, some of the reasons. Due to rapid decline in wildlife population and forestry, conservation preserves the ecological diversity and our life support system, that is air, water and soil. Conservation is needed to preserve the genetic diversity of plants and animals for better growth of species and breeding. Fisheries too are heavily dependent on the maintenance of aquatic biodiversity. So therefore, what the government did, government decided to pass certain laws, and government was also insisted by the environmentalists, conservationists to pass these laws to protect the forest and wildlife. And therefore, in the year 1972, the Indian government passed the Wildlife Protection Act. Okay? Indian Wildlife Protection Act was passed in 1972. Let us see some of the provisions in this act. According to this act, an all India list of protected species was published. Now why this was done? To protect the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, restricting trade in wildlife, giving legal protection to the habitats of the animals. Central government and many state governments also established national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, as we have Bondla Wildlife Sanctuary in Goa. So, central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals which were gravely threatened. Specific projects were made to protect certain animals which were gravely threatened. Like, we can see what happened after this act was passed. Hunting was banned. Then wildlife sanctuaries were established. Like we have the Bondla Wildlife Sanctuary. Then specific projects like Project Tiger and other projects were started by the government, like Project Rhino, Kashmir Stag. All these projects were for crocodiles. Okay, all these projects were started by the government. And then later on, certain more animals were also added to this list, to the protected list, like Indian elephant, Asiatic lion, the great Indian bustard, snow leopard. So these were some of the other animals which were also added in the protected list later on, so that they can get protection and we can protect these animals. Okay. Now conservation projects are also focusing on biodiversity rather than focusing on few of its components. So in the notification under Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several hundred butterflies, moths, beetles and one dragonfly have been added to the list of protected species. And in 1991, for the first time, plants were added to the list starting with 6 species. So these are all the other species which are also being given importance as far as protection is and conservation is concerned. Now the next topic is types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. Now most of the forests are either owned or managed by the government in India, and they are managed through the forest department and other government departments. Accordingly, we have classified the forest into different types. Okay, the first classification which we have here is the reserve forest. Now reserve forests are regarded as most valuable as far as the forest and wildlife are concerned, because they look after the conservation of forest and wildlife. And different states of India where we have majority of the reserve forest areas are mentioned here. We have Jammu Kashmir now, it is being divided into two parts. One is Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh, and both are union territories now. Then we have Andhra Pradesh, again there is a bifurcation of Andhra Pradesh. We have Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Then Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal and Maharashtra. All these states have a large area under reserve forest. The next category of forest is the protected forest. Now 1/3 of the forest area is under protected forest, and what they do, they protect the forest from any further depletion. And the states of Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Orissa and Rajasthan have large number of forests under protected forests. Then we have the unclassed forest. Now these are the forests and wasteland that belongs to government as well as private individual and communities. And most of this type of forest you will find in the northeastern states and parts of Gujarat. They have high percentage of unclassed forest and they are managed by the local authorities. So these are three different categories of forest. I'll just put a map for you all which highlights reserve forest, which are shown in green here. Now these are the states which have large part of their forest as reserve forest, highlighted in green, and the dotted parts states which are highlighting the protected forest. So as we know that Gujarat and most of the northeastern states, they have unclassed forest. Now protected forest and reserve forest together, they are called permanent forest estates. Okay, so protected forest and reserve forest, they are referred to as permanent forest estates, and these are maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other products, as well as the main reason is protecting the forest. The main reason here also is protecting the forest, and also other forest produce like are obtained from these forest estates. So Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under the permanent forest. Now as I have said, the permanent forest includes the reserve forest as well as the protected forests. So now we have seen the role of the government in protecting some of the things which the government has done, or some of the steps which the government has taken to protect the flora and fauna of our country. Now let us shift our attention to some of the important contributions of the communities, where the community has contributed in protecting the forest and wildlife of our country. Okay, as we know that forests are traditionally homes of many people, and these people themselves are interested in protecting these areas because they know that only these can help them to have their long-term livelihoods, as they are totally dependent on these areas. But there are some important movements like in Sarishka Tiger Reserve in Rajasthan, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. Now this happened in Rajasthan, where the people fought against the mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. Again, another example from Rajasthan is the Alwar district. The inhabitants of 5 villages of Alwar district of Rajasthan have declared 1,002 hectares of forest as Bhairodev Dakau Sanctuary, where they themselves do not allow hunting Okay, and forest and wildlife are protected from or against outside encroachment. Both these things happened or movement happened in, incident happened in the state of Rajasthan. Then we have the Chipko movement, which occurred in the Himalayas, where deforestation was successfully resisted. They stopped deforestation. So the Chipko movement in Himalayas has successfully resisted against deforestation, and they have shown that afforestation of indigenous species is possible. So these were the three important, very important movements which happened or which were conducted or organized by the community to protect the flora and fauna in India. Okay, I'll just show you the map. This is the Alwar district in Rajasthan. This is the map of India. Here we have the Alwar district in Rajasthan. Okay, so again I'll just put the same screen for you all, that in Sarishka Tiger Reserve what happened there was people fought against the mining by citing Wildlife Protection Act. And in Alwar district of Rajasthan, the villagers declared 1002 hectares of forest as Bhairodev Dakav Sanctuary. And then the Chipko movement, which successfully resisted deforestation in the Himalayas and practiced afforestation. Now attempts are also made to revive the traditional conservation method or developing new methods of ecological farming by the farmers and citizen groups. Like we have the Beach Bachao Andolan and Now Dhanya in Tihri. So farmers and citizen groups are also making attempt to revive the traditional conservation methods or developing new methods which will help in ecological farming. And they have shown that adequate level of diversified cropping is possible, or crop production is possible without the use of synthetic chemicals, and they are economically viable also. So these groups like Beach Bachao Andolan and Now Dhanya are also attempting to revive the traditional conservation method and develop new methods of ecological farming. Another important step which took place in conservation of forest and wildlife was the joint forest management. As the name suggests, joint means together. So in joint forest management, the local communities are involved in restoring and managing the degraded forest land, which is actually managed and controlled by the forest department, but they are helped by the local people in restoring and managing the degraded forest land according to the joint forest management program. Now the first state to pass such a resolution was the state of Orissa, and it was passed in 1988. You can see here that some officials are discussing with the villagers who are involved in the joint forest management program. So what are the features of the joint forest management program? Now joint forest management depends upon the formation of local institutions that undertake protective activities mostly on the degraded forest land managed by the forest department. So success depends upon the local institution, the people in the village who undertake the protective activities. And why do you think people will get involved in this? Because people are also benefited. There are many like-minded people who want to conserve and protect the environment, and therefore they also take part in such activities. Another reason communities get benefits like non-timber forest produce, they are entitled for benefits once they protect these areas, once they manage these areas, once they do certain protective activities, and whatever benefits are there, these are shared. They get a share in the non-timber forest produces. And they also get share in the timber harvested by successful protection. When the trees are successfully protected and whenever the timber is available, then they also get share in the timber harvested by successful protection. So because of all these reasons, many people, many communities, they participate in the joint forest management because they are nature lovers also, as well as they are also getting different types of benefits. Just want to highlight some of the non-timber products which are available in the forest for the people. So they get share in this, whenever these products are there, they also get share in these products because they are the part of the joint forest management. So students, we have covered the entire chapter, that is the forest and wildlife resources, which is the second chapter in your textbook. So with this we come towards the end of this lesson, that is the second lesson in geography, forest and wildlife. Thank you very much.